Before starting with understanding mechanism of Redux, first let's go back and understand mechanism of use reducer hook. And I believe you are already aware of use reducer hook. If you are not aware, then entire course link you will be getting in the description. Use reducer is nothing but it is an alternative way of setting and managing state. And this is the syntax of use reducer, which will be taking two arguments, reducer function and initial state, and in return it will be giving us the array which we have destructured. So this is the syntax of use reducer. So in use reducer, whenever we want to update the state in a component from an event handler, we start by creating an action. And action is nothing but it is an object which contains information about how the state has to be updated. Then simply we are going to call this dispatch function, and inside this dispatch function we will be passing the action which will be having entire information how the state has to be updated. And inside this object we can add multiple properties, but this is the standard most developers follow. For type simply we give type, and for payload we are going to give payload. Once we have called this dispatch function along with action, this action will be passed inside our reducer function, and this reducer function will be taking current state and action as its argument, and in return it is going to give us the next state. And as always, whenever we are updating the state, we are simply going to re-render our component. But now let us see mechanism of Redux. Now in Redux, everything will be same, but we are going to add two more things in order to learn how Redux works. So the first difference between use reducer and Redux is that in Redux, directly we are not going to dispatch the action to the reducer. Instead, we are going to dispatch the action inside our store. Instead of reducer, here we are having this store. And inside this store, we are going to have multiple reducers. And this store is nothing but centralized container where entire global state lives. So it is like single source of truth for all the global state object across entire application. And inside this store, we can have one or more reducers. Now, you might wonder why there are multiple reducers inside this store. So just remember, a reducer must be pure function that has single task of calculating the next state based on the action that was dispatched to the store, and the current state is already present inside the store. And if you see this diagram, inside this store we are having current state, and this action will be dispatched inside the store. And inside store we can have multiple reducers. So the simple answer would be we should be having one reducer per feature. If you want to increase, for that we can have one reducer. If you want to decrease, then for that you can create another reducer. So that is the reason we are having multiple reducer inside this store. Another example would be in a shopping app, you can have one reducer for shopping cart, one reducer for displaying the price, and one reducer for displaying user details. And again, once the action is dispatched, in return, we are going to get the next state. Once the state is updated, our component will be re-rendered. So entire thing is same. Only difference is directly we are not dispatching the action to the reducer. Instead, we are dispatching inside the store where we are having multiple reducers. And in real world, whenever we are using Redux, directly we are not going to pass the action inside dispatch function. Instead, we are going to create this action creator which will be returning action for us, and this action creator will automate the process of writing actions. And inside this simply we are going to return our action. And this has very big advantage of keeping all the actions in one central place, which will be reducing lots of bugs because developers don't have to remember exact action type string. So that is the reason we are going to create action creator, which in turn returns action for us. Just make a note, this action creator is optional and it is not a feature of Redux. But in real world, this is how we are going to create actions in Redux. Let's recap what we have seen. In order to update the global state with Redux, we start by calling an action creator in a component and then dispatch the action that resulted from action creator. After that, action will be reached to the store and our reducer will pick up the action and update the state according to the instructions which we have passed. After that, once the state is updated, then we will re-render our UI where this cycle finishes. So the major advantage, or you can also tell the big goal of all this, is to make the state logic separate from rest of the application. In one central place, we are going to store our entire state. Whichever component needs that state, they can easily request the data and in return, they can get the data. So whenever somebody asks you what is the difference between use reducer and Redux, you can tell whenever we are dispatching action inside use reducer, directly we are dispatching action inside reducer. But in Redux, we are dispatching action inside the store where Redux will pick up the action and update the state based on the instructions which we have given.